recording. So, my man James, I know we were just talking about some running backs here, but stepping away from the redraft mindset, I know we met through a dynasty league. Do you have any updated dynasty takes since I don't know? I mean, we probably talked about a month ago. I know I've done some drafts. Some opinions have been solidified, so I wanted to pick your brain with that as well.
Hmm. Something that's changed. Well, I don't know that this has necessarily changed, but there is a trend of offenses going more towards heavy personnel
Yeah.
usage. We saw, for instance, the Jags selecting a blocking tight end in the second round, and then another receiving tight end, Tanner Koziel,
Mm-hmm.
who I really like a lot, who's kind of a mixture of both, but is more of a receiving tight end. They
Yeah.
already have Strange. So, but the point being for saying that is that I think you are going to with these more modern, creative NFL offensive coordinators, and even if, regardless as to whether they're head coaches or offensive coordinators, you're going to need to be able to predict who is going to see the largest snap share in one wide receiver sets. And so obviously we can't see into the future, but I think players like Brian Thomas, I think Roma Dunze will be another one, but I do think that Burden can be the only receiver on the field to be fair as well. But I don't think it's going to be a ton of 13 necessarily, but I think we'll see some. But I
Okay.
think some of these players that kind of had down years that potentially could be the X wide receiver by themselves in heavier tight end, or even just in two wide receiver sets and 12 personnel are going to be guys that are going to have big bounce back years if they stay healthy. And I think that's going to be more of a trend where there's going to be it's going to be imperative that you have the upper echelon of wide receivers as opposed to a whole bunch of guys are going to be roughly equal. I think we're going to see more of a disparity between the elite guys and then guys that just aren't on the field enough to produce for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of put you on the spot there, and you did really well because that kind of seems to be the thing that I've noticed has been the discourse since the draft. I mean, we have guys like Nate Borkircher that went really early, Marlon Klein. There was a bunch of just blocking tight ends that went early, and it wasn't just blocking tight ends. I mean, it seems like everyone is trying to follow the new wave. Obviously, the big one last year was JSN. He was the only receiver out there and was getting all the targets. So there's a couple candidates for that this year. I think Lad McConkey has been a popular one that's just going to be the guy out there getting hyper targeted. So I mean, I would love that as a McConkey bag holder, but yeah, I mean that's something that I've seen a lot of discourse on, and it seems like people are going to try to like that's the new trend, so people are like catching up to it. I'm curious, maybe like looking at a year or two in the future, is it gonna like is this gonna be like the new thing, or is there gonna be a new like cutting edge thing that is just that like takes over the NFL that people because it's a copycat league, and that seems to, it seems to be the thing from last year that people are trying to like copy and replicate. So yeah.
It's tough to have a definitive answer as to when defenses will catch on. But well, not that they've caught on to what's happening. They know that the Bears and that the Lions, and that the Rams were doing it. But as to coming up with defenses that will stunt that while also not allowing the receiver that is on the field to gash them, whether they can come up with answers to that, that's an entirely different story. And there's no way to realistically predict when that will happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, for now, I think based on what we like we said with what we saw in the draft, it's safe to say that at least the teams that we saw, in my opinion, to depending on the tight end and we're particularly talking about overdrafting tight ends, I
Yeah.
think that it's a reasonable assumption to make that you are going to need to determine which one or two receivers, as long as it's an offense that can support two, you're going to want to bet on. Because like with the Jaguars, there aren't going to be 4 receivers that are going to be fantasy relevant consistently, in my opinion. There's
Yeah.
probably going to be 2.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean you know and Jacoby Myers is the least sexy, but Parker Washington has got a lot of hype this offseason. Obviously,
He's
BTJ
good.
has all the talent there, so it'll be curious, or I'll be curious to see what happens. And very interesting. One of the things, like it seems like we have a large middle class of the receivers. I mean, you were just kind of like alluding to it. You know, 10, 11, 13 points per game. not really going to get you where you want to go to the promised land nowadays. And there's only a couple truly game breaking assets. And I hate to kind of switch back to the redraft brain, but I think at this point, we're in a little bit of a running back renaissance now because I mean, there's not a laundry list of receivers that are gonna be studs. It seems like there's a couple beastly options, and then I mean, there's like a dime a dozen, like all the way from like I mean, I don't know the exact splits, but like wide receiver 25 through 40 might be super 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 similar. So like if you can find I mean it's not going to be Bijan Chase, but like if Jonathan Taylor has another elite year, or like I mean like these guys like earlier like A Chain, Hampton, Genty, um those guys can almost break fantasy football from a redraft standpoint because there's not going to be as many, I think, high end super stud receivers where like the past couple of years, like in redraft, the trend has been, running back zero, hero RB, like all these hip things have gone into the mainstream to where I think the pendulum might have swung just a little bit, but it is still June, so I don't want to get ahead of myself.
I was one of the first people. I say this is in. I was one of the, I did zero RB or hero wide receiver. I did that in one of the first years before it actually became a mainstream thing in 2015.
Oh
I
wow.
got I got Julio, Antonio Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins in the first three rounds, and they were the wide receivers 1 through
One.
3, and it was
Yep.
Hopkins' breakout year,
Yep.
bro. Undefeated that year. That shit was
That's
crazy.
awesome. I do remember that year, yeah. Man, like Hopkins had like so many years of like 13, 1,400 yards back to back. I mean, and it was like Brock Osweiler throwing him the ball. So I mean, that was kind of crazy. But um,
Yeah,
yeah, man. I uh,
fun.
I mean, we were talking about this like a little bit earlier. I just want to ask you, James Cook versus these other running backs like A Chain, Genty, Hampton, Chase Brown. Where do you see him if you had to pick one of those guys going forward, or is he above that class, below that class?
Is this Dynasty
No, this is redraft. Sorry, I should have
redraft?
specified.
Okay, redraft. Okay. The options were Hampton, Genty, Achan,
And James Cook, yeah,
and James Cook. Chase Brown, way below any of those guys. Just not as talented at
not
all.
as good. Nope.
I'd probably have this one's tough.
Yeah,
Um, I'd probably go with I think Genty. I think is going to have a very very good year.
yeah,
I'd consider him first. I'd consider them all relatively close to each other. I'd probably put them behind Gibbs and Bijan pretty
yeah,
comfortably. And I think that starting at 3, I think all of those guys are fine. And really, I wouldn't have a problem. I would just try to wait to see if you can. I would try to wait and see if you can snag one at a better ADP than the
yeah,
others.
yeah.
Probably
Yeah, like with a
pretty
guy like
close.
James Cook, I was kind of like hesitant because these past couple of years, like um, I don't know the exact year. I think it was 2 or 3 ago where he didn't have like it was like crazy touchdown variance in the wrong direction where like he had all these carries and didn't score. Um, Ever since then, he's been well worthy of like a first round redraft pick, and I just have kind of been scared of that. Yeah,
I just
I
don't think
mean,
he has the ceiling, and
right,
it's not his fault. I based on this past season, we saw that like no receiving usage. Like if like and it's not that he can't do it. We know he can catch passes. He's talented.
yeah,
It's not a talent issue. I think I think he's a great bet to have a really good floor, and he still has a pretty good ceiling too. I just think that like the max upside of a Genty and Achan, one of these guys that literally that gets a ridiculous potential amount of passing volume
yeah.
in an offense um, is probably higher, but I think he's really talented. And if you wanted him, I wouldn't really have an argument against.
Fair, yeah. We were just talking about the Bears, and you mentioned potentially Romo Dunze being the guy that can get Pepper with targets. Obviously, Luther Burden has a lot of hype, and he seems to be a popular breakout candidate. But you can't forget about Rome. But here's the guy that you really can't forget about, and it's not like nobody's forgot about it, but Colston
Loveland.
Loveland.
Yeah,
I
he's the
mean,
best of all of them
oh yeah,
by far.
like looking back at his college profile, I wrote like a 5 or 6 page piece. There was one year where he was like 49 point something percent of the offense. Like,
Yes, the highest I've ever seen,
yeah, that's
besides Trey McBride one
I
year
was
in college.
dude, I was just getting there. So Trey McBride, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I had a video probably 6 years ago called Brock Bowers is what we want Kyle Pitts to be. And then Brock Bowers had the crazy season in Georgia, and then he had the crazy rookie year. And then I drafted him in the first round of my main redraft league last year, and he was a bust. I mean, he didn't play as much as we wanted, but
Injuries.
yeah.
I mean,
I'm willing to look past that because I would take Brock Bowers first just because I think he's the most special out of McBride and Loveland. But in that three-headed monster, who do you think scores the most points this year and why?
this is assuming that we do get Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback for the Cardinals.
That's a really yes, that's a really good
Is
specification.
Okay, so if that is the case, I don't think the Cardinals made enough. I think I think I think I would go the slight edge to Bowers, but it really would not shock me in any way, shape, or form if McBride still outscored him. I
Yeah,
think we see potentially a little bit of a negative touchdown regression with Love coming in. I think it improves the overall efficiency of the Cardinals offense. But I
fair.
do think that it's less likely we get the amount of touchdowns that we saw from McBride. I still think he's going to be a great player though. And I think we see probably a lot of positive regression in basically every way for Brock Bowers
Yeah.
because of the upgrade in quarterbacks. Say what you want about Cousins,
Mhm.
he's better than what they had.
Way, yeah.
And then the possibility of Mendoza, the scheme upgrade, better offensive line, better coaching, everything. So I think I'd go Bowers over him, but I think that Loveland is my sneaky my dark horse tight end one overall candidate
Yeah.
with Warren being fourth.
Okay, dude, we're totally locked up here. So I was gonna ask you if there's someone else to do it. I mean, there's names like Warren or Fannin with and
Tim
Joke
left.
clearing out. I don't know because with the guy like, and I think Warren and Fannin are the fourth and fifth tight ends by ADP. So it's not like a crazy hot take to say that they could like push that. But with Fannin, I think he's getting a boost that is a little bit unwarranted because
Yeah, I don't know
Njoku,
why he'd be getting a boost.
yeah,
Why would he be getting a boost? He had more
well,
target competition now and no quarterback upgrade.
yeah.
Why
Well,
is that good?
I think people see Njoku leaving and they're like, oh, like he's the last man standing. But in reality, it's not like they're playing the same position. So
Yeah, he was a halfback, a fullback, a move tight end.
offensive weapon right there.
Super talented, a slot receiver, super
Hmm.
talented player. This isn't any kind of shot at his talent. I think that the added competition, along with no quarterback upgrade in any way, shape, or form, I don't understand. I just don't think he has the upside that the other guys do, just due to his situation, not his talent.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I was doing just like this is like last week, like looking at the tight ends and like redraft, and I mean it goes like 15 or 20 deep that I'm like really really comfortable with. People are pushing Arande Gaston down because Njoku went there. And I
That
mean
is
there's
bad.
yeah there's definitely holes to poke in Gaston's game, and a lot of his production came in only a couple outings last year, so that kind of sucks.
They also signed Kolar, and
Yeah,
I'm not pretending as though he's some special talent, but they paid him a solid amount of money, especially for a backup tight end.
yeah,
Um, I think he's going to be I think he's gonna be like I think he's gonna have explosive games here and there. I don't
yeah,
think you're going to be able to set and forget Gadsden.
yeah. Kolar is going to be blocking his ass off there and seeing the field a lot. So yeah, but that being said, man, this is a so this is kind of like a out of left field question here, but I want to really really like Emeka Agbuka, and I do like him. I do wonder a couple things though. If his production was backloaded last year, would his ADP be higher? Because I mean, he came out with like
Yeah,
130 points in the first 5 weeks, whatever. Um, Second question with no Mike Evans, how confident are we that he quote unquote mogs Chris Godwin if
Why
Godwin's
would you?
healthy.
Well, everyone thinks that their ideas are completely correct and that people who think differently are either dumb or uninformed. So of course I think that as well. So I don't know why anyone would be worried about Chris Godwin. He's going
Yeah,
to be absolutely fine. I think he's the most talented. Now he's significantly older,
yeah,
but I think Godwin's going to have a really good year. I think Ibuka is going to have a really good year. People act like Baker Mayfield, his shoulder wasn't completely effed. They act like Ibuka wasn't playing through injury. They didn't have, he wasn't a rookie, with all the other weapons around him being injured for portions of the year. He had to be the legitimate number one receiver and like the only receiver.
right.
McMillan had the neck issue. Um, I mean, he now it's not. I don't think he's a tier one receiver or anything, but I think he's good. I,
Yeah,
I also think. I mean, do we think that the Buccaneers can't support two total receivers when Baker's done this for how many years?
right, right.
I don't, both can eat. I think
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to have the third. I wouldn't want to have anyone other than Ibuka and Godwin as far as like starting for me in fantasy.
right. And yeah, I mean, I think McMillan has a lot of potential and
He's
talent, but
talented.
yeah,
Opportunity. I don't know about the opportunity.
right. Yeah, fair there. And it's not like Ted Hurst is gonna like mucky that up this year, but long term, I think Ted Hurst
He could
might
be their
find a role.
sacrificial X.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's just kind of like splitting hairs. Like if it's gonna be Godwin or Buka, then there's bigger things to worry about in Tampa Bay. Like I think it's very possible that that they both eat there. And
We see a Bucky bounce back.
yeah, man. So I'm not
Bucky,
stressed out about
Bucky.
Bucky as a Bucky Dynasty owner. He's famously got every
Unfair.
carry between the 20s in the past, like last half of this last year. Is there hope for him to regain his form where he's untackleable, getting 100 yards and getting goal line carries and passing work, or is it kind of going to be a split backfield, even with Rashad White leaving town?
I mean, I think he's a really talented player. I think that, we always say like, you want your running backs to have a 30.0 BMI. Typically, like if it's just like one of those preferences, if you could have it, you would.
Yeah,
Um, but that, not all sub 30 BMI running backs are really the same. Somebody like Achan, he was injured his whole rookie year. And so I was one of the people that was saying, look, he's small, he's really good, really explosive, but he's already getting hurt. And then he's been remarkably healthy since he's been getting a bunch of touches.
yeah,
Gibbs is another guy. He was bigger, to be fair, but still sub 30.0. But with Bucky, I just want to see. I do have that question just because we saw the injuries. Is he really capable of a starter workload, or is he better suited for
yeah.
like a rookie season Gibbs or like a rookie season Kamara type of usage to
Yeah.
maximize him?
That's a really good question because yeah, if you look at all, like I don't want to say the starting running backs in the NFL because it's not like there's I mean, I don't want to say that there's not starters anymore, but there's a lot more timeshares nowadays. But just looking at running backs in the NFL, they don't come as slim as Bucky. And the ones that are as slim as Bucky, they don't have the full-time role that Bucky does. So that's a pretty astute point there. And I just think it was kind of funny because like going into the draft, like everyone was like this draft, like they're like, my comp for Jeremiah Love is Jameer Gibbs, but thicker. And I'm like, I mean, that's great. I
Thicker.
think Gibbs is special
What?
though. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, bro. But I love my running backs thick, obviously, but they can't all be built like a shit brick house. I mean, like more and more often they look like Bucky Irving. You know.
Now the Kenny Gainwell signing is peculiar to me because I think of them as kind of in a similar vein
Yeah.
as far as the skill sets that they bring. I think that Bucky is definitely a more dynamic runner. I think that Kenny Gainwell is arguably a little bit better of a receiver, but I I still think that Bucky is the guy to own in the backfield
Oh,
generally.
for sure, yeah. And like I'm just kind of worried that Sean Tucker was getting goal line work, and Sean Tucker's a
Eh,
capable runner. No, you're not feeling him.
he's okay. People look at like, for instance, people like will always reference his massive game. I believe it was against the Jets,
Oh yeah,
and they were like the statistically like the worst run defense in the entire NFL. They'll look at one breakout game and say, "See, He did this against his time when he was the starter, and it's the same thing as Rico Dowdle. Oh my God, Rico Dowdle had 200 yards. Yes, like getting all the carries,
Yeah.
and is the moment he became the starter, he faced the 32nd best run defense in a historically bad run defense, and people get these ideas that it's sustainable and that he can do this anytime. He was also benefited by a very easy situational matchup when he happened to have all the guys around him
Yeah.
get hurt. But he's fine. I
Yeah.
just don't think he's like special or anything. He's inconsistent.
I love you bringing up Rico Dowdle because yeah,
200 yards. He's the best in the
right,
league.
right. And so okay, I have two things to say about that. One of them, in the dynasty league that we're in, I've had some good conversations with Kiffin Falls. That's my guy, but he was acting like it's a foregone conclusion that Rico Dowdle just runs away with the Steelers job, and I'm like, Jalen Warren's the
Why?
incumbent. Yeah, and okay, that's that's just ridiculous to me. But
Yes.
why I wanted to bring this up is the reason that I'm kind of scared of Bucky is like, okay, he has these injury concerns. Like, there's this quote like he'll be ready in fall or something, which like that kind of sucks. Which okay, but that's not the reason that I'm worried about him. It's last year, Sean Tucker may be just a guy, but with the combination of Bucky being a little bit slight, having some injury concerns, and Rashad White leaving town, and then them bringing in a guy with some pass catching skills and Kenneth Gainwell, I just think that we could have a scenario where some of the early down work is siphoned by Sean Tucker, some of the goal line work is siphoned by Sean Tucker. He never sees the field elsewhere, but then Kenneth Gainwell comes in for some obvious passing situations, kind of spells him a little bit, and then Bucky Irving is left with the least valuable touches on the football field, at the 50-yard line, just like grinding away. And like Bucky might have 18 carries for 90 yards, and that's not particularly helpful for fantasy, which, you know, I think Bucky is talented enough to kind of seize more of the backfield, but the writing was kind of on the wall towards the end of last year where he was never having those big Bucky games that we've been accustomed to. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that trend going into next year at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think he looked pretty decent at the beginning of the season. Then he got hurt, and then he was playing through injury. In my
Yeah,
opinion, based on
fair.
what I've heard, I don't think it's really a talent issue, but I mean, the durability is potentially an issue.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
if the results aren't good, then that's all we care about. We don't.
right.
It matters why, but if the results are bad, the results are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think the talent issue is there for Bucky at all. Like him and Jadarian Price kind of had that elusive running style that I really like to see. I think we brought that up like last part or something. But so okay, I'm kind of rambling here, but I'm pivoting on to a different situation here, a different three-headed monster at backfield. Okay, so Denver. Um, we got J.K. Dobbins going in the top 100 picks with basically no knees. Shout out J.K. Dobbins. We have
Shout out to JK.
Big Jonah Coleman, who I really wanted to be higher on, but the NFL wasn't very high on him. So, and RJ Harvey. I don't know what to do here, man. They like Harvey, but they don't like him enough to, give him the reins. What I mean, like, what are we doing here?
I mean, yeah, I was somebody that was much lower on
Jonah?
Coleman. I
Yeah.
was much lower on Coleman than most people were, but some people had him as like a first round pick for some
Oh
reason.
man.
A lot of people had him as a second to third. I thought he was like a fourth rounder. I think he's fine. I mean, I just don't think he's a special enough athlete at all.
Yeah.
It's like in a best case scenario, you get a Kyron Williams or a Chase Brown type situation where, yeah, they produce because they happen to be in the best spots you could possibly be in. But if you put a good running back in those backfields, you get Todd Gurley.
Yeah.
If you put a good running back in Cincinnati, well, they haven't had a good one to be fair in a minute, but if you put, let's say, if you put Bijan in Cincinnati, you have a Christian McCaffrey like 2,000-yard type season. If you put somebody that good in those situations,
Right.
so I think in a best case, I just reverting before I go off on a tangent about that though. I think Coleman, forget him, no capital at all in a terrible class that
True.
says everything you need to know. But As far as for redraft, in my opinion, scoop him up at the end of your roster if you have enough depth. That's fine. Dobbins is going to be getting the running work as long as he's healthy. He will get hurt at some point, and then you're going to get a backfield and Arvy's going to get the passing down work. Uh, and then when Dobbins does get hurt, as he has like for the last 7 years in a row, you're probably going to get most of that going to Coleman, but with no receiving work, and he's not anywhere near as talented as Dobbins. So,
Right.
and then I think you still get Harvey getting a couple carries a game with a ton of receiving work. I think Harvey's the one to own in the backfield,
Yeah.
but I don't think any of them are like Harvey would have to get hurt and Dobbins stay healthy for you to get somebody that's a true league winner at that position from that backfield, in my opinion. I don't
Yeah.
think Coleman's talented enough.
True. Yeah. I mean, if the stars align for a guy like Jonah Coleman, I would want to put in a good word for him and hope that he kind of figures it out. But it's definitely Harvey, and then maybe nobody if it like it comes down to it for someone that could really be, fantasy viable more than just like a flex. Like J.K. Dobbins is gonna have some good games, and he's gonna have some like 6 and 7 yard like per carry performances. And I mean, but at the end of the day, if everyone else in the backfield is hurt, the only one that's gonna be super excellent is Harvey there. So with Denver though, we have a new shiny toy in town. And it's not Justin Jolie, but I do love Justin Jolie. I'm talking about Jalen Waddle here. Do you think that this is finally the situation that Jalen Waddle can thrive like he did his first couple of years in Miami? Or is he just going to be one of these guys from wide receiver 25 to 40 that we were just talking about that don't really make a difference that much in fantasy?
I think he's what George Pickens would have been if CeeDee Lamb had stayed healthy the entire season. I think what would have happened with George Pickens had CD stayed healthy is that he would have been a really high ceiling, boom bust wide receiver. I think he's Jamison Williams. I think he's Jamison Williams. And that's fine, depending on where you get him. If you can get him at a good enough value, I don't see any problem with that. I just think I don't think he. I'll put it this way. Besides Puka Nakua, I've never met somebody that somehow has played a lot of games, but always seems hurt. I think the volume's cutting out. It's a little bit grainy or cutty.
My computer's getting dead, so I just try to plug it in. But
There
if
we
it
go.
doesn't sound very good, then we can just go until my computer's like dead. But yeah, I guess like it sound like our
Nah, I can't hear you.
but then oh yeah, hopefully we're all good here. There's a lot of options with the Denver offense, like between Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, Pat Bryant. I know Pat Bryant's your guy, but is there room for any of these guys to kind of like make some noise next to hopefully a productive Waddle and the incumbent Portland Sutton here that's gonna eat a bunch of targets there?
I think you get a whole bunch of boom bust. You hope they could. I just don't think so without injuries. I don't. I think you can hardly ever find an offense where the third option in the passing attack, as far as just the